Word on Health, the report with its finger on the pulse of popular medicine with Paul Pennington. Word on Health, for your very best of health. Food is fundamental to our health and well-being, providing the nutrients necessary for the body to function effectively. It supports mental health and plays a central role in social and cultural life. It's a central focus of Christmas, yet data shows that nearly 1 in 6 UK adults will have to rely on a food bank this winter for emergency food. The magnificent efforts by charities across the UK, like the Trussell Trust, do all they can to address the need. But over the last year, against a backdrop of the cost of living crisis, need has completely outpaced donations. Sophie Carre is from the Trussell Trust.
Trussell Trust exists so that everyone in the UK can be free of hunger. We are an anti-poverty charity and a community of food banks. And together we work alongside each other to build a future where no one needs a food bank to survive. Until then, we're providing emergency food and practical support to everyone who's left without enough money to live on. Trussell Trust, we've recently shortened our name to Trussell, was founded in 1997 by Paddy and Carol Henderson. And originally, the organisation that they founded was focused on actually improving conditions for children sleeping rough in Bulgaria. Word of their charity spread around Salisbury, and a mother in Salisbury came to talk to Paddy and said, "Did you know that there's actually so much poverty right on your doorstep? It's amazing the work that you're doing in Bulgaria, but there's a lot of people right here in Salisbury who really need your help." And as a result, they established the first Trussell Trust food bank in 2000. So we have been going for a number of years now. We've seen the scale of hunger and hardship in the UK dramatically increase since those early days. This year, food banks in our Trussell community gave out 1.4 million food parcels. And that's a 69% increase on the same period of time 5 years ago. So huge, huge increase. And we actually did a piece of research and released it earlier this year called The Cost of Hunger and Hardship. And that found that a record 9.3 million people in the UK are facing hunger and hardship. So we know the scale is huge. That in itself is 3 times the size of the population of Wales. It's a huge, huge issue.
I know from personal experience within my friendship group, it can be hard to have to reach out and get a referral for emergency food. And I congratulate you and all the charities in your sector for the level of kindness, support, understanding and assistance or signposting to organisations that might help an individual's specific needs over and above their nutritional requirements, that you provide people who come along to you with an emergency food bank voucher. Looking ahead, how can we eradicate the need for food banks?
What we need is a social security system that protects people from the levels of poverty that we're seeing. So the Trussell Trust launched a major campaign called Guarantee Our Essentials. And that's where we're calling on the UK government to enshrine in law for the very first time that universal credit and social security should always be based on what it really costs to get by and protect people with that minimum level of income so that they can, in fact, afford the essentials. So we need to keep calling for change. We've got to support the people today who are facing hunger, but we've got to collectively be calling for change as well.
Coming back to the here and now, if someone is listening to this interview and in a position to donate food, what do food banks need?
What we need is long life food that's in date. That could be tin beans, tin tuna, cereal, long life milk. We put together a nutritionally balanced 3-day emergency food parcel for people. We are urging everyone to play their part in ending hunger. And if you can donate in your local supermarket, or if you can take something down to your local food bank, it would be so appreciated because they're expecting a really incredibly busy winter.
Sophie, are there any types of food that you don't want? And what about other basic needs?
It can be really difficult. It depends for each food bank if they've got the capacity for fridges and freezers to be able to give fresh food. Some food banks can and some can't. So it's really always best to find out online what your local food bank needs. Food banks are also giving out toiletries and household essentials in many cases as well. It's not just about food, it's about income. So you can imagine people are going without many things.
And there are, of course, other ways that we can help.
Whether or not that be volunteering, collecting food, campaigning, if you can get involved in shouting about the Guarantee Our Essentials campaign, encouraging people to sign up and share that, donating funds so that we can continue to provide the level of support to people and to food banks that we do. There are lots of different ways that people can get involved, and it's so important that we keep talking about this.
My grateful thanks to Sophie Carre from the Trussell Trust. If you can support your local food bank, I know it will be very much appreciated. We'll have more information on the wordonhealth.com website. That's wordonhealth.com.
Word on Health, for your very best of health.
As virtually every advert reminds us, it's a festive time of the year and a special opportunity to be close with friends and family. It's also a highly pressurised season, not made any easier by the cost of living crisis. Whilst it may be better to give than to receive, expectations of simply having a wonderful Christmas time are high, and the emphasis that is put on a single day and all that goes with it is enormous. Sadly, on the run-up to and during Christmas for some, it can boil over into arguments and resentment. Mike Fisher from the British Association of Anger Management joins me with his 12 top tips on how we can enjoy an anger-free Christmas.
The first tip is manage expectations. When it comes to anger, people tend to have very high expectations of themselves and others around them. If they don't manage these expectations, that turns to resentment and anger. So it's very, very important that we reduce our expectations for this period of the year, and that'll actually help us to manage the stress, the anxiety, and of course the anger related to Christmas. The second one, queue jump. I can, of course, give numerous examples of sitting in queues myself and noticing how people who are actually standing in queues are so anxious about meeting their deadlines for Christmas that they start becoming aggressive and abusive to the people in front of them. The third one is to cut back on commitments. Often I notice the people that I know and the people that I work with have such heavy schedules during this particular period. And it's much, much healthier just to be very sensitive to what you're saying yes to and, of course, what you're saying no to.
Your fourth tip involves not leaving everything to the very last minute.
If the Christmas build-up leaves you overwhelmed, share your concerns with others close to you to rationalize your worries. Plan to also share the responsibilities for the day itself so the success does not rest on your shoulders.
Number 5 is for us to try and maintain a healthy mind.
This is really important this time of the year. Exercise will help clear the mind and often remove from you the immediate and often chaotic environment of your home. Lack of exercise can be a contributor to the build-up of stress, particularly when coupled with festive overindulgence.
So lots of walks and plenty of fresh air. Your 6th tip is for us to be better, not bitter.
This is one of those periods when we start meeting family and relatives we haven't seen for the whole year. And so it's inevitable at some point over Christmas you'll be stuck in a corner with or sat next to the person you spend the rest of the year trying to avoid. Resorting to rudeness and disrespect will only add to the build-up of stress and anger. Avoid lowering your tone to their level and instead diffuse the situation with polite, respectful behavior.
A very important 7th tip, I think, is to try and keep perspective on events and people.
One of our rules of anger management is to stop, think, take a look at the big picture. So remember who and what is important at times of intense stress. The moment will pass and you'll find comfort in letting it do so without the build-up of emotion. By keeping perspective, I think that's going to really help an individual deal with the intensity of this particular period.
Your 8th is to avoid excess, especially alcohol, which lowers defences, changes mood, and of course too much sugary food can lead to mood swings. So enjoy, but don't overdo it, is your key message. Your 9th is for us to know our trigger points for anger or arguments and have a strategy to deal with it. And your 10th talks of finding some calm.
If you find yourself getting angry, remove yourself from the situation immediately. Walk away and find a quiet place if you can. This will give you important time to calm your mood and think about the bigger picture. 11th point is learning to listen. Listen carefully to the other person and what they're saying and show your understanding of their point of view. Even if you don't agree with it, choose your words carefully to avoid the build-up of emotion and avoid using you always, you sometimes, you never, why don't you? And speak at a normal volume. Don't shout, don't argue. Instead, discuss and see if you can find a way of resolving whatever is going on between two people. And number 12, which I think is very, very important, is to relax and enjoy yourself. So don't give yourself a hard time about making Christmas perfect. The responsibility doesn't rest with one person. It's always worth remembering that for most, it's just one day of the year. So take your time to enjoy it and, have a great Christmas.
My grateful thanks to Mike Fisher. For a more detailed breakdown of how you can stay cool this Yule, visit our website, wordonhealth.com. That's wordonhealth.com.
Word on Health, for your very best of health.
Christmas can be particularly challenging for children who experience bedwetting or bowel issues due to a combination of emotional, social and physiological factors. Juliet Rayner is from the children's bladder and bowel charity Eric.
This is not an easy topic. Bladder and bowel conditions are stigmatised. The added challenges for Christmas time is there are many different dimensions. So, for example, if you've got a child who wets the bed, many families go away to stay with relatives at Christmas. You can imagine the extra anxiety on a child if perhaps they're sharing a bed or a bedroom or just sleeping top to tail with a relative, worrying about wetting their bed. Grandparents, may have a different attitude. There's somehow misparenting, why is your child still wetting the bed at this age? So there's all those extra pressures. And then a child with constipation, most importantly, is their routine. When you're changing the time you get up in the morning, you're eating food that you might not normally eat, so lots of rich food, lots of sweets and chocolates, that can put any of our bowel habits into a bit of a rise. So imagine if you're a child who's already struggling with constipation, and then you get all those added things of Christmas, it does create more problems, then more pain, more discomfort. Children with constipation often soil, so they're so blocked up, they actually then end up having diarrhea that goes around their blockage. So it looks like they're leaking into their pants, and all of these things have got the propensity to happen more at Christmas time.
How prevalent are bowel and bladder problems in children?
Well, we know there's about 1.5 million children in the UK that struggle with a bladder or bowel condition. That's 1 in 9 children. And that's what we know. Historically, these conditions have always been underreported. Many families will cope without going to the GP or anything like that. So if you think about that in terms of, say, a classroom size, that would be perhaps 3 to 4 children in every class. It's slightly lower levels as children get much older, slightly more prevalent in children primary school age or younger.
I know you encourage any family dealing with bladder or bowel problems in their children to reach out for help and not suffer in silence, and for all of us to be more understanding towards families dealing with them. If we do turn to the medical profession for help, how do things look in terms of service provision?
There's all sorts of challenges. We know the NHS is really strapped and really struggling, and bladder and bowel services, in some areas, they take it very, very seriously, and there are excellent integrated services for children. Sadly, it's not the case everywhere. With cutbacks, we hear of services closing, services being cut back. So it's a real postcode lottery in effect.
It therefore may not be surprising to learn that the number of children and families you've helped through your helpline and website has more than doubled over the past year. And as you move into your 36th year as a children's bladder and bowel charity, I know you want to be able to help the thousands of people who approach you for help and support. So you've launched an appeal for donations to ensure you have the resources available to meet the needs of children and families.
So we really need to make sure that we, as a minimum, keep the level of service we have now. But ideally, we need to generate a bigger income so that we can actually reach out to all of those families in need.
My grateful thanks to Juliet Rayner. To find out more about bladder and bowel problems in children and to support Eric's Christmas appeal or to contact the charity for help and support, visit our website, wordonhealth.com. That's wordonhealth.com.
Keeping you in touch with the health and lifestyle issues that matter. This is Word on Health with Paul Pennington.